Hey everyone, and welcome to today's Explainer. We are about to embark on a truly mind-bending journey through some profound philosophical source material that is pretty much guaranteed to challenge everything you think you know about spiritual practice and enlightenment. Based on the writings of Xu Feng, we're going to explore a really radical concept today: the idea that true spiritual liberation is completely impossible if we remain attached to what is called form. So get ready to rethink reality, because we're going to break down some absolute monumental concepts right now.
Okay, let's dive into this. The foundation of our entire explainer today rests on this ancient, incredibly powerful quote from the Diamond Sutra. It states very clearly, "All forms are illusory. If one sees all forms as non-forms, one sees the Tathagata." And by the way, the Tathagata is just a term for the Buddha, or ultimate truth. I want you to really let that sink in for a second. This text is completely dismantling our everyday understanding of reality. It's basically telling us that everything we instinctively cling to is just an illusion, and that freedom only comes when we stop seeing the world through those traditional, rigid lenses.
Section 1. What is form? Defining the illusion.
Now, before we can break free from forms, we really have to know what we're dealing with, right? And the source material provides a deeply expansive definition here. Form isn't just physical matter. Actually, scratch that. It includes physical matter. Everything perceived by our senses, like what we see, hear, smell, taste, and touch. But, crucially, the text expands this to include anything that binds the mind, imprisons the soul, or restricts human freedom. So form extends way beyond physical objects, right into the concepts, the expectations, and the structures that govern our lives.
And this brilliantly illustrates the duality of the traps we're facing. On one hand, we have our physical senses, but on the other, we have ideological chains. Things like strict morality, religious dogmas, rigid laws, and societal taboos. Just think about the modern-day stresses we all face. You know, the pressure to conform, to follow a very specific life path, or to adhere to unwritten social rules. The author argues that these societal codes and religious systems are actually just invisible chains. They're forms that trap our spiritual liberation just as much, if not more, than the physical world does. To really cement this idea, the source uses a beautiful, totally evocative metaphor. It says, seeking truth through form is like trying to catch the moon in water. Just picture someone standing in a pond at night, frantically splashing around trying to grab the glowing reflection on the surface. It's completely futile, right? No matter how hard you try, you will never ever grasp the actual moon by reaching for its reflection. Well, seeking enlightenment through physical objects or rigid ideological forms is exactly the same thing.
Section 2. 6 traps on the path. Let's look at these deviant paths.
So the source material warns us that because we misunderstand form, our conventional practices can actually be devastating traps. It outlines 6 major, mistaken attachments. Let's bust some myths and look at these one by one. Trap number 1 directly challenges mainstream assumptions: physical acts of worship. Building grand temples, crafting beautiful statues, burning incense, prostrating, wearing specific robes. The text categorizes all of this as a deviant path. These physical acts are just massive attachments to form that distract us from true liberation.
Trap number 2 moves from the physical to the organizational, establishing doctrines, strict regulations, and hierarchical systems of control. According to the source, creating rigid religious hierarchies and complex management systems doesn't actually help people reach enlightenment at all. It actually blocks true wisdom from reaching the masses. It effectively turns spiritual freedom into an administrative cage.
Then we have trap number 3, which is clinging strictly to precepts and prescribed methods of practice. If you're rigorously following specific meditation steps, checking off boxes or agonizing over arbitrary rules of practice, you are caught in a trap. The text warns that these are all attachments to the form of Dharma. Basically, you're mistaking the instruction manual for the destination itself.
Trap number 4 is something we see constantly in human history: dividing spiritual seekers into sects, schools, and factions. The very act of putting a label on your spiritual practice, or joining an exclusive group and claiming it is the quote-unquote right one, is a definitive trap. It immediately creates division, forms boundaries, and leads you completely astray from universal truth.
Now, what's really interesting about this slide is how it confronts our everyday morality. Trap number 5 is the enforcement of moral taboos. The text boldly states that claiming things like smoking, drinking, eating meat, or engaging in sex will prevent you from becoming a Buddha is just another attachment to form. Obsessing over these everyday actions, beating yourself up over them, and turning them into rigid taboos actually shackles the mind rather than freeing it.
And finally, we reach the ultimate irony with trap number 6, claiming to teach the Dharma. The text asserts that all dharmas are Buddha Dharma, and true Dharma is entirely formless. The Tathagata speaks no Dharma. Therefore, the moment someone stands up and claims they are officially teaching you the ultimate rigid truth, they are setting a trap and walking a deviant path. The truth simply cannot be boxed into a lecture.
Section 3. The true meaning of formlessness.
So, if all these physical acts, doctrines, taboos, and teachings are traps, how do we escape? Well, we have to leave the physical and conceptual world behind entirely. And that brings us to the ultimate question. What exactly is the state of formlessness?
Section 4. Handun. All merges into one.
The answer lies in a concept called Handun, a state of primordial oneness and undifferentiated simplicity where all boundaries, all categories, and all distinctions completely vanish. In this state, physical space entirely collapses. Heaven is not heaven and earth is not earth. The two become completely indistinguishable. There's no above, no below, no direction, no edges, and no corners. It's utterly formless. Physical reality as we categorize it just entirely dissolves.
Furthermore, the concept of time itself is revealed to be an illusion we must abandon. The past and the future merge. There's no coming, no going, no birth, and no death. There is literally only eternity. Reaching formlessness also requires letting go of our deepest human judgments. In this state, there is no good and no evil, no truth and no falsehood, no beauty and no ugliness. The duality of yin and yang ceases to exist. Everything blends until there is only oneness. When we stop clinging to our rigid human judgments of good versus bad, we enter a state of utter, unshakable stillness. No love, no hate, no seeking, no abandoning.
But wait, the source clarifies a massive misconception here, and this is absolutely crucial. Formlessness is not merely emptiness. If you cling to the notion of emptiness, you've just fallen into another extreme. You've basically made emptiness into a new form. Formlessness isn't some dead, blank void. Rather, the text describes it as the vibrant, living flow of the Tao, a state of living spirit with resonance and response completely free of any barriers.
Section 5. Dharma has no fixed dharma. The paradigm shift.
So how do we synthesize all of this? The text states that there aren't merely 84,000 Dharma doors, there are infinite doors. If you desperately cling to any single door, you'll find no door at all. But if you can drop your attachments and reach that state of formlessness, then everywhere is a door. Everything becomes a pathway to enlightenment.
The crucial takeaway, summarizing the ultimate wisdom of the source material, is this. Dharma has no fixed dharma. No dharma is true dharma. Form has no fixed form. Formlessness is true form. The absolute absence of rules, boundaries, and attachments is the only true rule.
And that leads us perfectly to this final, stunning paradox left to us by the author. If you think what I say is right, then I have already set a trap for you. You are walking a deviant path. If you think I am wrong, you are also caught in a trap. You too are walking a deviant path. Wow! Even the act of judging the very words in this explainer as correct or incorrect is an attachment to form. It forces us to stop categorizing, stop clinging to the intellectual framework, and simply experience the living flow of reality. How's that for a paradigm shift to leave you pondering? Thank you so much for exploring this fascinating text with me today.